Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back, and I've got you guys an update to my cold Herald of Ice Flicker Invoker build here, and they've made some big improvements since the last video, and I'm excited to show you guys what I've got cooking here. And the build has improved both in quality of life, damage, clear, everything about it is just better. So I'm really excited to show you guys this. I think this is now probably one of the, if not the best, like melee build out there. I've seen a lot of other flicker builds and warrior builds and stuff, and nothing can really compete with the level of speed clearing as well as bossing one-shot potential that this build can get. And I'm not even like super juiced on gear. I have pretty good gear, but it could get a lot better still. So let's start off and going over the big changes. So the biggest change that makes this build feel a whole lot better than last video is we've gotten rid of a button that we had to click. Before we had to click Reaper's Invocation to get our power charges. Now we have those automatically being generated for us by using Cast on Critical. Now, how do you fit this 100 spirit reservation aura? Well, we're now at 286 spirit, and the reason we can get that is because we've gotten a better body armor here with more evasion and energy shield, giving us more spirit from our ascendancy. But also, we are using a Against the Darkness here. And this, although the ascendancy from Invoker prevents you getting spirit from gear, that does now not count jewels in your passive skill tree. So we're still gaining all the spirit here from this Against the Darkness. And I think in total I have 5 notables in range. So it's giving me exactly 60 spirit. So by dropping Reaper's Invocation and adding this 60 spirit in, we basically got 90 more spirit than before, and because Cast on Critical with quality will give you 10% increased reservation efficiency, it costs exactly 90 spirit to use. So we've been able to fit it for that reason. Now, this will basically just generate us charges as we're, mapping. We really never have to click any extra buttons to get charges. We just kind of get them on auto. And the way that we're generating them quickly is by doing critical strikes. So how do we do enough critical strikes to generate us charges? Well, that has caused me to make another change here, which I have dropped I Am the Thunder in favor of now using Elemental Expression. And Elemental Expression doesn't necessarily do really any damage, but it does do a lot of hits. And we can take advantage of that to make it build up our cast on crit really fast. So I'm using it with Blind, Ambush, and Pinpoint. These two supports will enable it to always crit. Blind will give it, it'll basically blind everyone around us, allowing us to be a lot tankier and have our evasion be a lot higher. Because it increases your effective evasion when enemies are blinded by a lot. So instead of like 70% evade chance, we're going to be closer to like 90% evade chance against enemies, or like at least 80 something. So much better defensively to use Blind here, since this skill doesn't do any damage, but it's going to be hitting everything around us. So might as well use that here. And then we're using Nova Projectiles again to allow it to get bigger coverage and cover everything with Blind. And then Chain, because this second skill here, the Arcing Bolt, this is the one that we're going to be triggering the most because it's based on our dexterity, and we have the highest dexterity of all our attributes. And it can chain up to, I think it's like 8 times, 9 times normally. But if you use chain 3 support, it now chains 21 times. And this is going to allow a lot of crits to happen, a lot of blind to be spread all over the place, and our cast on crit to be built up really quickly. So our cast on crit is being built up very quickly, and we always have charges while mapping, and we really don't have to press any extra buttons. So we just go around flickering back to back with no headache at all. There's also been some changes to the passive tree and whatnot, but I'll go over those later. So yeah, those are the big major changes here with this jewel. Now keep in mind, this jewel is expensive. This jewel for me was about 58 divines, and then it took me, thankfully, only 1 divine to hit the perfect rolls on it, which is very lucky. But it can cost you anywhere between 60 to 70 to divine it perfectly like this. So this is kind of what is, bringing the build up a level. Instead of buying a headhunter, this is what you'd be saving for, because this build really doesn't need a headhunter. It has enough mobility, it has a 100% crit chance, it's tanky enough, it doesn't need those extra buffs. And honestly, Headhunter does get kind of annoying with some of the buffs that it gives you, where it just like teleports you randomly and you can't control your character. I'm not a huge fan of that. So we're making a build here without it, and we don't really need it. This build is exceptional even without Headhunter. Let's go over the skill gems first, because that's probably what you're here for, to swap your build to this upgraded version. So let's start with, we already went over Elemental Expression. Flicker, I have decided, because I have enough damage as extra cold now from various sources, including this Jewel, which has damage as extra cold. Ideally, I'd have a Heart of the Well with damage as extra cold as well, but unfortunately mine is Chaos right now, but ideally you'd want to get that. And then also we have, of course, damage as extra cold on our weapon from before. So we have a lot of sources of that, allowing me to not need Embitter to convert my Ambrosia's damage into cold. So now I'm just using Ambrosia the way it is, just lightning damage. And that's going to allow us to shock, and it's more damage overall because we can fit another damage support gem. So close combat, Ambrosia, concentrated area, Elemental Armament 2, and of course Ancestral's Call. This is our mapping gem. Now you're going to take this out for bossing, especially Pinnacles, because this doesn't provide really any damage there. And for bossing, you're going to use this called Gurakan's Resolve. It's not too expensive, it's like 15 exalts or something, and this effectively doubles your damage because it allows you to double crit. Making you benefit from twice your normal critical damage bonus. And because we have 100% crit chance in this build, we're always going to double crit, which means we're basically going to do, twice as much damage on bosses with this support gem in. And this is an easy way to one-shot Pinnacles without needing to build any combo or use Culmination or any of that. I just one-shot them just outright without having to do anything, any build-up, any, whatever. For bosses like Zesh, for example, where you're going to have charges running up to the boss, you might want to consider taking some of these points here for increased power charge duration that allow your charges to last until you get the boss to spawn. For bosses that do not have a lead up like Zesht, there is some tech you can use with Sacrifice and having a Scepter with some Skeletal Warriors to sacrifice them to gain your charges with Profane Ritual. It's a little tedious, but if you plan on doing those types of bosses, you can easily set that up on your weapon swap and then just go into the boss with charges. And like I said, once you have your charges, even without charge staff, honestly, I've been one-shotting Pinnacles. I think my best one-shot yesterday was I think it was like 4 power charges, no charge staff. Just 4 power charges is all I needed to one-shot tier 4 Zesht. So yeah, very, very strong at bossing this build. Next, we got Ice Strike. This is to build build up charges with critting at the beginning of the maps, as well as just to kill stuff in between our flickers. And of course, using the same supports as before: close combat, rapid attacks, Rigwolds, Rage 3, and Crescendo. Moving on to Charge Staff, same thing, close combat, elemental armament, freeze, ice bite, and prolonged duration. Now, cast on critical, we're using Profane Ritual, of course, but we're not using all the decreased duration stuff. We're using just Overabundance and Swift Affliction. The reason why we're not using the compressed duration support is because if the ritual duration is too short, then while we're flickering, it's going to be triggering, and we're not going to gain those power charges because we cannot gain power charges while we're flickering. So the ideal setup is that the duration of the ritual lasts just a little bit longer than our flicker, so that after we land and our flicker is over, that's when all the charges will come to us. So I've decided to drop that. We're now at a ritual duration of, I think, let me see here, ritual duration of 0.7 seconds, which feels about right for me. So Overabundance 1, Swift Affliction 3, Charge Infusion 2, and then to build more energy quickly with Cast on Critical, we're using Boundless Energy 2. Blasphemy, I have been able to fit extra supports into it now with Heightened Curse and Dialias because I have enough Spirit. And now my Enfeeble is a massive 24% Enfeeble, which is great defensively. Also, I've been upgrading my skill gems. As you can see, most of them have +1 level from corruption. So that's another thing you can try to get to improve the build a bit. And then moving on to Herald of Ice, this is our main clearing ability, and we're using Close Combat, Biting Frost, Elemental Focus, Elemental Armament, and Magnified Area 1. If you have enough damage, you could probably try Magnified Area 2. It's slightly more AoE, but it doesn't make a huge difference. It ends up being only 0.1 meter bigger, but that's an option. Now this thing right here, this thing will go over 200,000 damage when fully buffed while mapping for me. which is absolutely insane, and allows it to basically anything in its radius will just get one shot, aside from like tanky rares, but those will get one shot by our flicker, so it doesn't really matter. Moving on to Ghost Dance, we're using now compressed duration with the Uhtred's Omen to give it even more levels. I could corrupt this to get another level, but yeah, I probably should. This one can be up to like level 23, I think, if I leveled it up and also corrupted it. But yeah, Wind Dancer, we're using close combat, maim, blind, elemental armament, and magnified area. Again, these are nice defensive things to keep us alive, and then just enough damage here to be able to one-shot things and trigger our Herald Device. And then finally, charge regulation. This is how we're getting a lot more crit, as well as extra defense and skill speed some of the time, because we will have endurance charges and frenzy charges sometimes. And of course, I'm supporting it with Uhtred's Exodus to give it more levels. This is the one where on bosses you could take this out, probably, because we're going to gain extra crit against bosses due to these points here, giving us extra crit against dazed enemies. And since we'll be able to daze the boss, if you hit it a couple times before you use your flicker, you'll be able to daze it. That should guarantee that you gain that extra crit chance. So we could drop this for bossing and put in our Hand of Chiola. And Hand of Chiola is going to be supported with Sniper's Mark, Marked for Death, Culmination, of course, so that we can get those power charges, Aidless Chimes, and Charge Profusion. So on bosses that do not have a lead up like Zesht, and you don't have any power charges going in, if you don't want to deal with the sacrifice tech, then this is an easy way to just generate your charges. You just attack a few times with your Ice Strike, then you use your Hand of Chiola, it'll give you your charges, and then you go for the flicker. And you know, as long as you have like 5 or 6 charges, you probably one-shot the boss at that point. So it doesn't take too long. It's maybe like 5 or 6 seconds of extra work. But yeah, that's what I would use for bossing. But only pinnacles. You don't need that for any kind of map bosses. Those are no issue at all. On map, the one thing about map bosses is you want to make sure that you don't leave the map before you kill the boss, because killing them with no charges is kind of annoying. So if it's a boss, if it's a map with a boss, then just make sure that you do the boss right after you kill some enemies, so that you'll have your charges up and you can just go in and one shot them. So that's kind of how I do those maps. Is I make sure that, you know, I'm near the boss when I have charges, right? And okay, let me go over the tree now. So the tree has not really changed that much. We're still using a lot of the same stuff. The main improvements here are, like I said, because we're taking this against the darkness now, we've decided to add these points here into our main, main points, and not part of a weapon set anymore. We've also dropped this Essence of Mountain weapon set points because we don't need it anymore. We have enough cold buildup or freeze buildup, and we get all that freeze buildup from here. This is giving, I think, a combined 70% freeze buildup, which is insane, making freezing enemies a lot easier. As well as it has extra days on hit, which again synergizes really well with this dizzying hits and stupefy points. And then finally, it's giving us 30% increased defenses while wielding a quarterstaff, which is just more evasion and energy shield for us. So it's nice defensively as well. These points are actually not bad at all. So we ended up taking those. So the only weapon set points we have are for mapping. We, of course, are still going Evocational Practitioner, and we're going this damage against frozen enemies. Since we're not really going to be freezing pinnacles, we're going to kill them before they even get frozen, so this is kind of pointless for them. But in maps, we're going to be freezing everything, so take this, of course. And then for bossing, again, if you want to use the combo setup, we have these combo points here to make those bosses easier and quicker. But again, I've been, like, especially for Zesht, I haven't been even weapon swapping. I've been just staying on my mapping weapon set, and I've still been able to one-shot him just fine because of the charges and the charge staff still being up by the time the boss spawns and whatnot. So yeah, those are the major changes here to the passive skill tree. I'll, of course, have the POB linked in the description if you guys want a, detailed tree and everything with all the gear and skill gem setup and everything. But yeah, that's the build update. It's amazing. I promise you guys, if you guys make this build and copy it one-to-one the way I've got it, it's going to be a blast to play for mapping and for bossing. And it'll be probably the most fun melee build you'll ever play. I swear by that. It's an amazing and really fun build. It doesn't really have any weaknesses. It's very tanky, does a ton of damage, great clear, good mobility with a flicker, teleporting you around, and then also can one-shot pinnacles. So the only downside I found in my playing this build is that you sometimes get taken on a journey with your flicker strike, and it will take you far away from where you started, which means if loot drops along the way as you're killing stuff, you might have to backtrack a little bit to get the loot. That's the only downside of this build, is that you sometimes have to backtrack for loot because flicker is just going to take you all over the place. But if you just plan to loot at the end of the map, or if you have a strict filter where you're not really picking up low value items, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem. This build also definitely excels better when there's high density. The more monsters, the more carnage, the better. So of course you're going to want to do juiced maps with breaches, with abysses, just any kind of pack density that you can get. Maybe even spec into density on your Atlas tree, for example. You can get extra pack size, or you can put the pack size delirium emotions onto your maps to make the build feel even better. So of course you're going to want to do that. So the more monsters, the better, because that'll allow our flicker to chain all over the place, and we don't have these annoying little short flickers where we only flicker to one like pack of enemies and then they die and then we're done, right? We want to be able to flicker back to back to back and make use of all those charges that we're generating. So yeah, that's the build. I've also, before I leave you guys, I've also made a huge upgrade here by adding in a Rite of Passage charm. This again is another very expensive upgrade. This was, I think, 30 divines or so. And I decided to go for the Spirit of the Owl, which is granting a lot of extra damage and energy shield, as well as damage as extra cold, which again is going to help us to freeze even better. So very, very strong here, giving us a lot of extra energy shield and damage when this is up. And this triggers whenever we kill rares, and it lasts 20 seconds. So in maps where we're killing a lot of rares, it's pretty much always up. So very, very nice. Definitely worth it. I dropped the freeze charm in place of this. I'm not sure if that was the right idea. Maybe you can go without a stun charm instead. I'm not sure exactly. But you're going to want to fit this in regardless, because it is granting us so much extra power. Now, there is an option with this build if you wanted to. If you feel like you have enough energy shield, maybe you invest a little bit more and go like melding over here. You could potentially opt in for Chaos Inoculation. The one downside of this is the build doesn't have the best energy shield recovery. It doesn't have like energy shield leech or anything like that. So most of our energy shield recovery is revolving around Ghost Stance triggering. So if you wanted to go Chaos Inoculation, you could, but if you do that, you're going to want to also take these points here to get extra ailment and stun threshold based on your energy shield. So keep that in mind, but that is an option if you want to go Chaos Inoculation. It is viable. It's maybe just not as good for recovery, but you could definitely benefit from the immunity to chaos damage, which is kind of annoying this league. There's a lot of it. So yeah, that's the build. Hope you guys enjoy, and hope you guys have a blast with this build. I had a lot of fun. I think the build is pretty much done at this point. There of course is some improvements I could make to getting better gloves, of course a better quarterstaff or whatever, and maybe some more damage on the rings, but it's been working like a charm for me without any real headaches. So I don't think I really need to make any improvements. Everything's getting eviscerated in maps, and we're just melting bosses, so I think I'm happy with it. And like I said, this weapon that I crafted that's being able to do all this for me was only about 10 divines. I got kind of lucky on it, but suffice to say that the weapon, which is normally the most expensive slot to fill for most builds, is not even that expensive for this build. So I would say it is a relatively budget build, because you don't need some crazy 200, 300 divine weapon to perform. You just need a weapon like this that you can craft yourself, and you're good to go. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you guys have fun with the build, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.